The day everything collapsed started with a single sentence that shattered me. My wife looked at me with eyes I barely recognized anymore and said, "You're worthless. I'm taking the kids." Those words landed harder than losing my job earlier that morning. After nearly 10 years at the same factory, I'd walked in expecting another ordinary shift. Instead, I was handed a cardboard box, told my position had been eliminated, and escorted out with a handshake that felt more like an apology they didn't mean. No warning, no appreciation. Just a quiet dismissal of everything I'd built there. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd figure it out. That night, I drove home rehearsing how I'd explain it to Marielle. She didn't give me the chance. When she said she was taking Nolan and Tessa, something inside me collapsed. I stood there holding the old lunch bag my mother had sewn years ago. Same one I carried to work every day, and suddenly none of it mattered anymore. The job, the routine, the pride I thought I had earned. All I could see were my children's drawings on the fridge, their shoes by the door, the sound of their laughter echoing in rooms that were about to become silent. I couldn't breathe inside that house. I stepped outside without knowing where I was going. The cool September air hit my face, sharp and unforgiving, like the world itself was reminding me how little ground I had left to stand on. I walked for a long time, long enough for doubt to turn into certainty, long enough for her words to start sounding true. Maybe I was worthless. Maybe all I had ever done was show up and think that was enough. Maybe Nolan and Tessa would be better off without a father who couldn't hold anything together. That's when I saw the diner. It was small, tucked between a gas station and a pawn shop, glowing with warm yellow light against the dark. I went inside and slid into a booth in the corner. A waitress poured me coffee without asking. I stared into the cup, watching my reflection ripple in the surface. I looked older than 35. Tired, defeated, like a man who had run out of explanations. I didn't notice the old man sit down across from me until he spoke. "You look just like my son." I turned, startled. His face was lined with age, but his eyes carried something deeper grief that had learned to survive. He studied me quietly, then added, "He's been missing for 35 years. And for a moment, I thought maybe. His name was Harlan. He didn't ask questions right away. He just listened. And when I finally spoke, everything came out. Losing my job, my marriage breaking apart, my children being taken from me. I told him I didn't know who I was anymore, that every role I'd built my life around had vanished in a single day. He leaned forward then, his voice calm but heavy with meaning, and said 5 words that cut through everything else. "Don't abandon him like me." I asked him what he meant, and he told me about his son. About long hours, about silence mistaken for strength, about believing love didn't need to be spoken or shown. One day, his son disappeared, and Harlan spent the rest of his life wondering if absence quiet, invisible absence had pushed him away. His words settled into me slowly, painfully. I saw no one's face when he asked if I was coming with them. I saw Tessa gripping her backpack, too young to understand why her world was changing, and I realized something terrifying. If I walked away now, even quietly, even out of shame or exhaustion, I would be choosing the same regret. Harlan carried every day of his life, so Primera stood up. I drove straight to my sister-in-law's house, where Marielle had taken the kids. My hands shook on the steering wheel, but I didn't turn back. When she opened the door, she told me to leave. Said I was upsetting them. Said this wasn't the time, for the first time in years. I didn't step aside. "I'm not leaving without seeing my children," I said. Nolan appeared behind her, eyes wide and searching. Then Tessa. They ran to me like they had been holding their breath all night. Nolan hugged me tight and whispered, "I knew you'd come." That moment broke something open inside me. I told Marielle calmly that she could leave me if she wanted, but she couldn't erase me from my children's lives. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't successful by her standards, but I was their father, and I wasn't disappearing. The days that followed weren't easy. I worked whatever jobs I could find. I swallowed my pride. I rebuilt, slowly. My marriage didn't magically heal, but something else did. My sense of self. Every time I showed up for my kids, I reminded them, and myself, that I was still standing. Weeks later, I went back to the diner to thank Harlan. The waitress told me he'd passed away years ago. I sat in that same booth for a long time, understanding that whether he was real or something I was meant to meet, his message had saved me. Life can take your job. It can take your marriage. It can strip you down until you don't recognize yourself. But as long as you keep showing up for the people who need you, you are not worthless. I am still rebuilding. I am still learning. But I know this now with certainty. I am a father, and that is reason enough to keep going.